Hi, and welcome to this conversation. I welcome Rani Bora.
Hi,
Welcome.
lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you here. I needed to change the place I'm sitting in. So yeah, but it's lovely to have you here, Rana. And you work.
Rani, you said Rana.
Rani. Sorry.
That stands for queen.
I get a little when I need to change place suddenly.
That's all right. I just thought I'll say that. Hey, it's not Rana.
That's how it is. It's yeah. But you are a holistic psychiatrist.
That's right.
Yeah. And you coach people to see the wellness and to the healthy in us, which we are born with. And we put the topic today to forgiveness and oh, I forgot the name.
Self-forgiveness. Is that it? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, we have to forgive that I forgive, that I forgave. What to say? Empowerment. I'm sorry. Empowerment. So Rani, can you talk a little about that?
Right. First of all, Cecilia, thank you so much for inviting me to your corner of the world. And before we even jumped on this, before you even click record, you shared your powerful story. And that was very, very touching. And so I just wanted to acknowledge you for that. And I want to acknowledge you for the work you're doing by sharing a message of hope that so many people need to hear, for sure. And one of the things that I said when you said, hey, shall we talk about this? Shall we talk about that? I have been exploring, like going inwards more and more. I have been exploring what it takes to feel really empowered from the inside out. Not a technique, not like positive thinking, but really feel grounded in, just being us and not needing to be someone else or something else. Of course, we need to, and we can have goals, and we can always want to improve ourselves. This form we have got as a person, there's nothing wrong with that. We all do that. And yet, if we keep doing that, if we go into self development world or self empowerment, thinking that somehow, oh, I'm broken and I need to do the best to, like, just put plaster everywhere, just like to heal. And so we got it wrong if you're thinking that. And I have no idea what I'm going to talk about because I don't like coming prepared. I just like it to flow and us to have a conversation. So I will share what comes to me right now, and then I'll be asking for what you are hearing in what I'm saying. I have been working on something called my document, and I don't know whether you've come across it, but there's a book called The Ultimate Coach, and it's about the ultimate coach. He's called the Ultimate Coach, Steve Hudson, and his wife and a client of his wrote that book because he would not write this book. And when the client said, look, you need to write a book about the amazing things you're doing, and he's not three principles based at all, but he is talking about who we're being, and he's shifting people, the shifting and helping people shift to be the highest version of themselves. And so he said, no, I'm not going to do that, because if I write a book, it would need to be about being. But if I write a book, it's not about being at all. But this other person, his client, then somehow got around to making him agree, and that they decided, the client and his wife, decided to write a book about him and the amazing, his life story, about how he had gone through all these challenges in life, but how he like, despite all the odds and everything, how he just like, he always showed up with the highest version of himself, and the impact he had is with his, not just himself, through the work, through forgiveness, but also to his clients and everyone else. So that's, and he the way he helps people is to help them create something called a document, which is a personal internal statement, like I am statements. Because our I am statements, the default, then the conditioning that we have got, the default is I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I am hopeless, I am, whatever. So although we are not saying that's my document, but we are living that. We are like, because if imagine this, if that's our belief at some level, and we are showing up in the world doing whatever we're doing, but at some level we're believing that, we are going to create more of that. And so the document, the work he helps people, and the work he does with people, his clients, is about coaching them around like creating a new document, like who do they want to be and how can they be that in the way of being. But the process is self-forgiveness. So say, for example, someone has this belief that I'm not good enough. So, like, I am is a very, very strong, it's like my identity, this is who I am. So if we are thinking I am, what follows is not good enough. And then we are trying to create a business, we are trying to heal, we are trying to have an amazing relationship, but it runs like that, it's not going to work. So the one, he helps people with the self-forgiveness process, like where the I am not good enough shifts, and instead of that, it's like I am something that really resonates with them after the self-forgiveness process. So when I talk about empowerment, it is not a positive thinking, it is not a positive affirmation, it is more about really like going deep, really going deep to who we truly are. And from that place, we know that, the forgiveness, the self-forgiveness, when we're talking about self-forgiveness, it's the personal self we are talking about. It's the small self that wants forgiveness, that thinks they need forgiveness. Whereas the true self, as we know, and I'm sure the listeners, the people who come here, they already, maybe they have heard you share about the principles. So they know that, the true, when we talk about true self, no one can say, oh, this is exactly what true self is. We can only have an idea of our true essence. And that seems quite big, quite infinite, quite like you can't put a finger and say, this is exactly it. It is a knowing of some kind. And just like you said that in your story, when you're sharing with me, that you said, I knew that was not right when they said that I was not well or something like that. You said like, then something shifted. So we already have a deep inner knowing that we are much more than our this body, this mind, this form, this what we call ourselves. And the self-forgiveness is important for this person, because otherwise they're playing the same, like, oh, I'm not good enough and that kind of thing. But the true self just is. It's isness. True self doesn't need to forgive. It's, how can you, how it's undescribable. But when someone has a very deep understanding of what the principles are pointing to, and then we just get a insight, we just know, from that place of knowing, self-forgiveness comes easier, because there's no story with the true self. There's no story. the story of our pain, our suffering, our timeline is with the small self. So anyway, I'm exploring this more and more in my own work because I came across the principles several years ago, almost a decade ago, I think less than a decade. But when I came, I had a huge insight, just like you. I had a huge insight, and that shifted things. And it's like said, it's like unpeeling something. And the analogy I would use is the David of Michelangelo. You know, he saw there's a big, huge slab of marble, and then and people ask, like, because that's a masterpiece, and when people ask Michelangelo, how did you create this masterpiece of David? He just said, David was already inside. All I did was I chipped away everything that was not David. So in a way, the self-forgiveness process is about chipping away those bits that's really not who we are, who we truly are. And so it's just chipping away. And it might be a very, very gradual process. We might be chipping away even a little bit of this marble, and that's still great. That's still progress. So the more we are open to doing our own work, and even it might seem like, oh, I still can't see, I still can't see the David, just trusting that who we truly are, even when we have layers and layers of like conditioning piled up, is the David which is just waiting to be unleashed. So we do our work, and that's empowerment. And we are not in a competition. This is not a rat race. So like, who can get to the finish line soon? We all are in our own journey in this human self. So we do our bit. We keep looking. We keep learning. And the most important thing is that we learn, we have an insight. But for transformation to happen, we also need to do something. I know that the three principles, they say there's no doing. Of course, the self, who we truly are needs to doing. But in this world of form, we're always doing. We are talking right now. We had to go in Zoom. We had to schedule a calendar. That's doing. But what I'm saying is, once we have an insight, like, okay, no, I know I'm good. I know I'm enough. So the doing would be like, I show up from the place of knowing that I'm enough. And so I'm still doing everything I normally do in my life, but my inner stance is not a victim anymore. My inner stance is an empowered being. So that's the essence of what I am exploring more and more, and why I wanted to talk about empowerment and self-forgiveness today. Does this make sense to you?
Yes, and but I have seen with myself that if you got like I had and like you had, a glimpse of something deeper, something that touched deeply, because I have gone through life and haven't felt that feeling, not that deep feeling. And when that came, it touched me so deeply that something started to happen from the inside. And most of the people don't come in that place very often, but when it comes, it really come deep in us, and it things change. And when we feel that, I can see now that this is a story, this is made up, this is not who I am, this is only what I thought I was, then I can start to trust that feeling more and more, because I have seen that it isn't true. And I say, when you know, you know.
Yeah, when you see, you can't unsee it. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You know, you know.
Yeah. So there, I can see that's a big difference. Before, I told myself, this is how it is. Other people told me it's like this. but I couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it deeply. So when you feel it and you start to see there's something there.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say, Cecilia, is yes, for some it might happen as a like a even when they are not looking for it. Like in your case, you were in a very in an environment that time that where it was not like you had gone for an amazing yoga retreat or something like that, or a tree principles retreat. You were in a very different place, but then you still saw something. So that happens to people. And for rather than waiting for that to happen in its own time, also what people can do is they can get curious. What's Rani talking about? What's Cecilia talking about? Let me have a look and start looking in this direction. And what I would say is like, it's a learning again. Like, you might think you're not learning anything, or it's nothing's making sense to you. But if you keep looking in the direction of the principles, at some point something will click. And that's what I say to my patients. Most of my patients, I just ask them to read Cindy Banks' books. Not everyone reads it. And there are some people who has read it and like something has clicked for them. The things are not same anymore. They can't say anything different. They don't know what happened. All they know is that they were touched by something in the book. So even reading Sydney Banks' materials could really help someone get a glimpse of what you're talking about. Even if you don't do anything else and go to the source, which is like the person who had the enlightenment experience. You don't have to read anything else. Just go back to Sydney Banks. And, two books I normally recommend, Second Chance and The Enlightened Gardener. And I think my favorite is The Second Chance, because I just loved it. When I remember when I first came across the Second Chance book, it was a weekend, and I was like sitting. I sometimes I'd like to have a afternoon nap, and I had the book, and I was thinking, oh, I'll just read this book and have a nap, and I just couldn't have a nap. I just in one sitting I finished the book. And because that when we hear truth, we just know it.
And then we also know that the innocence with addiction or behavior that we didn't saw before, that we try our best to help ourselves to feel better. So we try to do things for feeling better, even if it doesn't work. But I can really see, I can really, in that way, I can really, if we talk about forgiveness, I can really forgive that I came to all this, that all this happened for me with believing all this dark, heavy thoughts and get so negative. And also that I took all this medicine so I become not clear in my head. I can see now that I did it because I wanted to help myself. So that in that point, I can really forgive myself. Yeah. But we talked about that. I still got blind parts that in life, in the life going on now, that I have problems to forgive.
Yeah. And isn't it beautiful, Cecilia? That's being human. That's you being vulnerable and saying that and saying, look, I'm not perfect. Me too. I know that there are times when I'm like, oh, how do they do that? It shouldn't be, they shouldn't be doing that kind of thing. And again, this is why the process of creating the I am, the document I'm talking about is so powerful, because the moment we notice that, because that's out of sync with our true essence. Whenever we're holding on to grudges, like we know, and we have heard this quote that when we are, when we, are angry at someone else and we don't forgive them, it's like we are drinking the poison. We are the ones drinking the poison. It's like we are drinking the poison and expecting someone else to die or something like that. Whereas we are the ones like slowly dying in the sense that with the suffering, that we are like with toxin. And if only we could realize that we have a choice. We don't need to forgive someone else, but can we forgive ourselves even for having judgmental thoughts of something that happened like a minute ago, 10 days ago, or 10 years ago? And so it's not like you need to, they can go scot-free, because and they should not have, there shouldn't be consequences of whatever people did. And I'm talking because I'm a psychiatrist. I have seen, I know of trauma, and I know of what happens to people. But what I'll still say is, forgiveness is for us, and it can be a very gentle process of just like letting go only as far as we feel okay to let go, but knowing that it's a, I would say it's an exponential leap. The more we see our true nature, the more our I am statements are powerful. When we forgive ourselves for thinking the thought that I am stupid, forget what people did, but the I am statements that we are carrying around with us now, despite whatever someone said so many years ago, we can make a conscious decision of working on that. And the self-forgiveness could be just us. We don't need to focus on anyone else and what they did and so, but what we made of it, how we are still like chewing on something that happened years ago, that we can forgive. That might be less painful than trying to forgive someone else. So it's always starting with us. This is self-care. This is, some people might not like the word love, self-love. Yeah, I know people who just cringe, like, oh, how can I self-love? That's like vanity, and I don't do that. Okay, call it self-care. Call it self-care.
Even if people say that's your thought, this is what you think. Because I have people said to me when I walk away, or I say stop, we end here. Yeah, that's your thought. It's how you believe in it. Yeah, it is. It's my thought, because I can't think. But something in me deeply say that this doesn't feels nice for me. So the feeling tells me to go another way.
I guess you immediately know that this is not in sync with your true nature. So you choose to just avoid that conversation because you know that you're just being drawn with your thinking, with your feeling, to something that might not be needed in that moment for you, for your self nurture. So I guess our own understanding of our true nature is going to guide us to what is needed, what is not needed, what conversations are useful, what conversations are only going to add to the pain or whatever.
But something I also have seen with myself lately is that I walk away, but I don't have that hate in me like I had for a few years ago. I could feel not hate, but I could feel very anger, and I just felt very awful negative thoughts about the other person. But today I can see that this is a behavior. This is it's not who they are. It's not. So I don't need to feel that kind of feeling. I just don't like what they do.
And it's a preference. We all have preferences. a preference. We can like what people do. We might not like what people do, and we can then decide, like, is this in sync with my values? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
does it align with my values? If it's not aligned with my values, then we can make a choice to let go.
Hmm. But Rani, I'm very curious about you. You are a psychiatrist. Did you work as a psychiatrist before you came across the three principles?
Yeah, I was working as a consultant psychiatrist in a rehabilitation ward when I came across the principles, had a profound insight, and then that shifted how I saw people, because my insight was that I thought I was doing the best I could as a very, kind psychiatrist. However, I was only seeing them as broken and needing to be fixed. So that was my stance. That was my innocent behavior given my misunderstanding. And so when you talk about, like, when you say the behavior is because, in their world, their reality, that's the truth. So my truth was that, my personal truth was that people are broken and they need to be fixed. And I didn't know about our spiritual nature. I had an inclination, but I didn't see it so powerfully. And I didn't see that everyone had it, because we are all the same, we are part of the same consciousness. Yeah, we are part of the same, I call it inner blue sky. I call it mental wealth. So one thing I say has been more and more clear with all this is, when we talk about mental health, we are thinking of mental illness mostly, and we are thinking of some well-being techniques to keep people well. And what you and I are pointing to is mental wealth. We already have the David that we talked about, inside of us. All we need to do is, like Michelangelo, chip away the stuff that's not us. And so mental wealth is something which is already within, and it's the most precious gift we all have been given. Once we truly see this, we feel, we experience, we're grounded in empowerment, because the resilience comes from, that place. And so that's super helpful to know.
I have met people, they get scared. They get scared because they want to have that diagnosis. They want to they can't believe or see that there is a deeper wisdom and energy in us, that guide that can take care of us. Many people get scared.
Yeah. And it's okay. They are where they need to be until they see something different. And again, if we try to make them see it, we are trying to fix them.
For me, it came, the insight of being well, mentally well, came like that, very fast.
Yeah.
And no one needed to tell me anything about it, because I came to that point that I just knew. I knew by myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I didn't have thoughts about it after. I had a lot of thoughts about it. But the thing with if I was broken was very clear. I didn't have any thoughts about that because I knew, and I have known that all the time. It has never shifted since that day.
Yeah. And I'm conscious of the time, Cecilia, but I think if people can take one core message from today, it's like, we're talking about self-forgiveness and we are talking about empowerment, is to really test it out, is to really test what you just said. It's like, although at some level it might seem like I'm broken, just check it out. We are not pointing to the physical form, we are pointing to a deep spiritual understanding, and our spiritual essence can never be broken. And so I think this is a really good place to just stop it and say this is a core message we want to people to just consider and test out and check it out.
Thank you so much, Rani. Thank you so much for this conversation.
You're very welcome, Cecilia.
I hope to see you soon again.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye, Cecilia. Thank you.